Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Those are the headlines we're tracking this hour. You're watching Rush Hour and I'm Sumita Kari. Let's then begin the show with a quick check at the markets and how they performed today. Well, the Nifty index has snapped a 5-week losing streak, surging by 0.8%. This week, 35 out of 50 Nifty constituents advanced in trade, with Jio Financial and Maruti leading the charge. Meanwhile, the Nifty Mid-Cap Index reached an all-time high, driven by strong performances from Bharat Heavy Electricals and Prestige Estates. The Nifty Small Cap Index also hit a record high, with BSE and Kalyan Jewellers taking the lead. The Nifty Realty Index continued its upward trajectory as well for the second consecutive week, emerging as the top sectoral gainer. Prestige and India Bulls Housing Finance led the pack with over 5% gains. In other sectors, Nifty Metal, Nifty Auto, Nifty IT and Nifty Bank indices all advanced for the second straight week. However, the Nifty FMCG index halted a 2-week gaining streak, weighed down by Godrej Consumer and HUL. This week's market action showcases a diverse range of performances across sectors. And non-farm payrolls in the United States rose 1,87,000 in August, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics or BLS reported. This reading came in higher than the market expectation of 1,70,000. On a negative note, July's increase of 1,87,000 got revised lower to 1,57,000. In today's energy news, U.S. crude oil prices have surged above the $85 per barrel, marking their highest point since November, according to a report by Bloomberg. This surge is driven by supply cuts from the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries and its allies, tightening the global crude market. Production reductions by key players like Saudi Arabia and Russia, coupled with China's economic stimulus efforts and strong U.S. economic data, have propelled prices upwards. Additionally, slower than anticipated wage growth, as revealed in U.S. jobs data, eases pressure on the Fed Reserve to raise interest rates. West Texas Intermediate has gained up to 1.9% and Brent has followed suit. And then let's take a quick look at the Wall Street. Well, stocks opened in green as markets expect Fed Reserve to keep a lid on interest rates for the time being on the back of rising unemployment data. Dow Jones up as much as 200 points. And those are market highlights. But now let's move on to an ET Now exclusive. We learned that Torrent Pharma promoters will be paring stake in the company to fund buyout promoter stake in Cipla. My colleague Cheryl D'Souza joins in with more details. Cheryl, now this could be very well be the second largest Indian pharma company, right?
Yes, it's an ET Now exclusive. Sources have told ET Now that Torrent Pharma, which is actually looking to bid for the Hamid family stake in Cipla, is actually moving ahead with various options. One of the options that the sources have told us is the fact that the promoters of Torrent Pharma may look to actually dilute partial stake in the company. Approximately 20% is a stake that they may look to actually dilute in the company. Remember, the promoters of Torrent Pharma already hold 71.25% stake in the company. So this is one of the options that they are looking at. Remember, the Hamid family stake sale is supposed to be an all-cash deal. Apart from looking at the option of actually divesting stake in Torrent Pharma, what the promoters are also doing is that they have lined up debt from foreign lenders as well. And in case the company is going ahead with that bid for the Cipla stake, they will be doing that in a consortium with the Ps. Remember, both Cipla as well as Storen Pharma are cash-generating businesses, and also if this deal goes through and it's a combined entity, will become the second largest pharma company in India by market capitalization. Also, the combined entity will likely have the revenue of around 32,000 crore rupees, while an EBITDA of approximately 8,000 crore rupees. No doubt, when we actually broke the story, we asked the Torrent Pharma, we actually emailed Torrent Pharma for their comments. We did not get their response. However, they've actually responded to the exchanges, and they've told the exchanges that at this point in time, they don't have material information that requires disclosure. Also, they've said that they will not be commenting on speculative reports. support. So that's the commentary coming in from Torrent Pharma. But what we are learning from sources is the fact that various combinations of financing that the company may look at in order to pick up that stake in Cipla.
And it's reading exclusives on ET now. Moving on to another one now. We learn from reliable sources that two of the biggest family offices in India are applying to set up a family investment fund in Gift City. My colleague Bhavya brings us more details on this story. So Bhavya, how soon will this fund come up?
So family offices of Azim Premji and Narayan Murthy are looking to set up family investment funds, which are called FIFs, in Gift City in Gandhinagar, Gujarat. So Premji's Premji Invest and Murthy's Catamaran Ventures are the first ones to put down their applications with the International Financial Services Center in Gift City, Gujarat to set up an FIF. Now, a family investment fund is a fund that can invest in assets in India as well as in the financial services centers established in Gift City as well as overseas globally. Now, these funds are considered an Indian resident for taxation purposes, but they are considered a foreign resident for exchange control purposes. Any family fund set up in the Gift City can avail 100% tax exemption for a consecutive 10 years within a 15-period duration. Now, these funds can also avail GST exemption as well for the services received by the unit set up in IFSC or provided to the unit set up in IFSC. Apart from this, they may be subject to MAT as applicable, and the amount thus available should be available for credit in the available subsequent years. Also, TCS at 20% will be applicable under the LRS regulations from 1st of October 2023 for investing in FIFs. Now, family investment funds may pool money from a single family. Individual investors are allowed to contribute up to $250,000, while 90% family-owned entity can contribute up to 50% of its net worth. Apart from this, FIFs must hold a minimum capital of $10 million within 3 years of its operations.
And moving on to some news from the auto sector. Well, the auto sector has seen strong monthly sales numbers for the month of August, but competition in the two-wheeler space is heating up. Eicher Motors today launched the Bullet 350 motorcycle, which will be competing with the Bajaj Triumph and Hero MotoCorp's Harley Davidson. Let's go across to my colleague Sumit, who was at the launch event. Sumit, so what's new with the Bullet 340? Does it pack enough punch to beat Trump and Harley?
Royal Enfield has launched its much-awaited Bullet 350 today in Chennai. It's priced from 1.73 lakh to 2.15 lakh. Well, this bike has made what Royal Enfield is now. It's a bike that has been running from generation and generations, and it has seen many avatars, and it's a new avatar coming of the Bullet 350. Well, the bike, well, it has been there since long time and supporting Royal Enfield. Whatever has come and gone, this bike has stayed with Royal Enfield, and today it's in new avatar. What has changed? Well, the DNA remains same, but the chassis of this bike is new. It's a J-type platform. Features are there. The braking, that has changed a bit. Also, what has changed is overall, we can say that refinement and tuning of the engine. New features have been added. It has been given a complete makeover. In terms of looks, it's not that changed. It looks like the same Bullet which was there earlier also, because company thinks when it's not broke, why to change it? So when the look is doing so well for the company, it's not going to change much as far as look is concerned, because it was the USP of Bullets since long time. Well, the market is changing. Hero Harley has come, Bajaj Triumph has come. New companies are coming to take the overall market share of, eat into the market share of Royal Enfield. But this is the one Royal Enfield is betting on.
All right, so lots of action happening in the auto space, but now let's move on to ET Now's explainer. After the historic touchdown on the moon's south pole, ISRO is all set to shoot for the moon. The space agency will launch India's first space-based observatory-class solar mission called the Aditya L1. The Aditya L1 mission will see the Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, or PSLV, carry the 1,475 kg spacecraft to an elliptical orbit around the Earth. The spacecraft will travel 1.5 million kilometers from the Earth, which is nearly 4 times the distance traveled by the Chandrayaan mission so far. But before we deep dive into this mission's objectives and payloads on board Aditya L1, first up, let's answer the question, why even study the Sun? You see, the Sun is the nearest star to Earth and therefore can be studied in greater detail than others. And while the Sun sustains all life forms on Earth, its thermal and magnetic phenomena pose a threat to our satellites and communication systems. Studying the Sun could help us preempt such threats. Moreover, it will also widen our knowledge and understanding of the larger universe. Another great mystery shrouding the Sun is the fact that the temperature of Sun or the outermost layer is a stunning 1 to 2 million degrees Celsius, but its surface temperature is only 5,500 degrees Celsius. Aditya L1 could help the scientific community decode this puzzling anomaly. The Aditya L1 has 4 key objectives. Firstly, it will study the heating of the Sun's corona and solar wind acceleration. Next, it will study the Sun's upper atmospheric layers or the photosphere. It will also study the expulsion of plasma in magnetic fields, a phenomena called coronal mass ejection. In fact, talking about payloads, the Aditya L1 will be carrying 7 payloads. The main payload is the visible emission line coronagraph or VLEC, which will help study the solar corona. Next up is the Solar Ultraviolet Imaging Telescope, which will capture the UV image of the solar photosphere and chromosphere. It will help study the variation in light energy emitted. The Solar Low Energy X-ray Spectrometer and High Energy L1 Orbiting X-ray Spectrometer will study X-ray flares. The Aditya Solar Wind Particle Experiment or ASPEX and Plasma Analyzer Package for Aditya will study the solar, wind and energetic ions, I beg your pardon. And to do all of this, the Aditya L1 spacecraft will travel over 1 million kilometers to the Lagrange point 1 or L1. These points are positioned in space where the gravitational pull of large masses balances out. Put simply, objects placed at these points can stay in orbit without much fuel consumption. There are a total of 5 of such points in space, but Aditya L1 will travel to the point 1 or simply L1. What makes L1 important is the fact that it offers an uninterrupted view of the Sun. The Aditya L1 spacecraft can therefore study the Sun without any obstructions. Currently, the L1 point is home to NASA's SOHO satellite. Here's wishing the mission all the very best. And moving on to some breaking news at this point in time, well, Ministry of Finance has released GST data for the month of August. Rupees 1,59,069 crores gross GST revenue has been collected for the month of August 2023, recording an 11% year-on-year growth. Sumit Chaturvedi, my colleague, is joining us for more details on this. Sumit, so this data coming in right after government's stellar GDP print speaks of a stellar growth story. Share the specifics.
Absolutely, it's exhibiting a robust growth of this 1.59 crore rupees of this data has come like a shocking arm for the government. It's been now many months together that it's crossing the 1.5 lakh now. But it's these 3 months, however, 11% growth is really big for the government. 11% growth at 1.59 crore rupees and lakh crore rupees. And if we contribute the breakup, CGST is 28 crore, CGST is 35,794 crore, IGST is 43,554 rupees. So it's really a big number. First 3 states that have topped in terms of both our J&K, Himachal and Punjab. The key contributor clearly we know that increased compliance and activity going forward. Festive season is coming, so it looks like it's going to further jump from here on. But it's having said that, it's really a big number and continuation of this number. That is what really a very optimistic overall news for the government as well as for the country.
All right, Sumit. So, on the back of improved compliance and reduced evasion, the government seeing the gross GST revenue, GST collection rising to 11% for the month of August. Thank you very much on that note for joining us with all of those details. And moving on, a lot is happening in the gas space. From import duty rollback to price hikes by Aramco for propane, Gujarat Gas is in focus on the back of these developments. Somit joins in with the details. Somit, over to you.
Well, if you see, there have been multiple news flows coming in for Gujarat Gas. The first news flow that was there was the fact that Saudi Aramco had increased propane prices for the month of September. Now, these prices will be applicable in India with a 1 month lag, which means that propane prices from October 1st will be around $550 per ton, which means that propane would have been expensive in front of the gas that Gujarat Gas supplies in the Morbi region. But government has also rolled back the duty that they had increased in the month of July on propane imports. Now, in the month of July, they had increased the propane import duty to 19.25%, but that has now been rolled back, and the duty has now been brought down to around 2.75% earlier. So because of this, what is happening now is that actually the propane prices, despite the rise in prices by Saudi Aramco, the landed propane prices cost in Morbi region would in fact be lower at around 36 rupees per SCM in fact 41 rupees per SCM in the month of October, as compared to the gas prices that Gujarat Gas is charging, which stands at around 45 to 46 rupees. So despite the fact that propane prices increased, actually the propane landed cost in Gujarat would still be lower compared to Gujarat Gas cost, and that is because of the duty rollback, and hence this could be a negative implication on Gujarat Gas, given the fact that more volume shift will happen towards propane going forward. Currently the propane to gas volume mix is largely even, but this could shift towards propane given the fact that propane is now becoming cheaper. And for Gujarat Gas, the another negative part is given the rise in crude oil prices, the gas contracts which are linked to Brent crude, the cost is also increasing, because of which the margins could also see a negative impact going forward. So Gujarat Gas remains in focus given the fact that there could be more volume shift over propane, and there could be a margin squeeze coming in for Gujarat Gas going forward.
Thanks, Amit, for getting us all of those details. And moving on to some news from the e-commerce sector, well, the government is likely to come up with the national e-commerce policy this month. ET now has learned from sources that the new policy will have a fallback liability clause for sellers and will prohibit private labels and predatory prices. Excuse me. Samesh Dikshit, my colleague, filed this report earlier in the day today.
The much-awaited national e-commerce policy is prepared and is likely to be released soon. But what we are getting to know from our sources that before releasing this, an important meeting that is going to be chaired by top government officials will take place. Sources have indicated that PM Modi is likely to chair this important full and final review meeting. Prime Minister Modi will be chairing this review meeting on national e-commerce policy by the mid of September, and the key participant could be not just the Union Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal, the secretaries of the concerned department, but also the key e-commerce players like the representative from Amazon, Flipkart and other e-commerce entity. Now this entire national e-commerce policy focuses on specific pillars. What we are getting to know from our sources that e-commerce policy will focus on discouraging the private labels. The e-commerce players will not be allowed to sell the private labels. It mentions that e-commerce companies may be restricted from selling the private labels produced by the companies which have significant interest. Not just this, the policy also focuses on to promote the export. By year 2030, it is expected that the e-commerce export could be somewhere to the tune of 200 to $300 billion US, and this national e-commerce policy will give a push to achieve this bigger target. Also, this fallback liability clause will be there. Fallback liability clause in the sense that the primary responsibility will be of the seller rather than the marketplace. In addition to this, the violation of e-commerce rules will be discouraged through this e-commerce policy. For example, the deep discounting or special discount that is usually offered. So that sort of violation will also be discouraged through this e-commerce policy. Now, this e-commerce policy will have a significant impact on the big players, whether it be Amazon, Flipkart, Reliance or Tata. So this e-commerce policy has been prepared with the detailed discussion with these stakeholders. It is there almost ready, but a final discussion or a final review will be held by Prime Minister Modi, which is likely to happen by the mid of September, and then it will be out for the public.
So a final consultation, a final meeting will be held after the G20 summit gets over. This G20 summit is happening next weekend. Meanwhile, a fallback liability is something that establishes more responsibility on the marketplace instead of just the sellers in case of faulty products. The new policy is being keenly awaited to regulate the sector. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Commerce and Consumer Affairs are empowered to create guiding principles, and rules will be framed under the Consumer Protection Act, while the e-commerce policy will come under DPIIT. And moving on, if the markets continue to show strong performance, the assets under management should range between 11 to 12 lakh crores by March 2023. My colleague Bhavya Dua caught up with Mr. Deepak Mohanty, who is the chairman of the Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority. Let's listen into excerpts of that chat.
Are growing quite well. That we are at 10 lakh crore. So if the markets perform well, so that we should settle somewhere between 11 to 12 lakh crore at the end of this financial year.
Also, we have seen this number double in 2 years and 10 months, from 5 trillion rupees to 10 trillion rupees. How much more time do you think it will take to double this from 10 to 20 now?
You see, the time is also getting compressed. That if you see that to reach 1 lakh crore, so it took almost 6.5 years. So from there we have compressed the time, and then this is under 3 years that we have doubled. And let's hope at least we can maintain this kind of a run rate.
Also, what is the progress like when we are talking about reaching out to the unorganized sector? And again, what do the targets for this financial year look like?
No, you could see that unorganized sector and a common person can also access NPS. There is no bar. But we are also activating the intermediary space that we have, that they can also offer NPS. For example,
well, that's Deepak Mohanty on PFRDA's future plans. Meanwhile, some news from the national capital. Well, one nation, one poll. Yes, that's been an idea which has been pushed strongly by the Prime Minister. Now, in what could be called as a significant development, the government has established a committee for one nation, one election, with former President Ramnath Kovind all set to lead it. Centre has also indicated created a six-member panel. This decision follows BJP's national chief JP Nadda's recent visit to Kovind's residence, coinciding with the surprise announcement of a special parliamentary session from September 18th till the September 22nd, the agenda for which remains undisclosed. Notably, this move aligns with the upcoming elections in 5 states. The move has sparked criticism from the opposition, which is questioning the timing of this decision, and many leaders from the opposition label it as a diversionary tactic. While the BJP is questioning their apprehensions about the panel's purpose, let's listen into some political reactions coming in on this.
The years of damage they have done to the country and its people through their corruption, through their dynasty and through their appeasement politics, they are ashamed of their name and they want to change their name. But a name change does not change the original corrupt product. What their politics is. Their politics has been will be and will always be one of dynasties, centered around corruption and exploitation and appeasement.
One nation, one election, ये बहुत अच्छा डिसीजन होगा अगर ये फाइनल हुआ तो, क्योंकि कुछ साल पहले इस कंट्री ने वन नेशन वन टैक्स इसके बारे में डिसीजन लिया.
Some news now from the world of sports. Now, if you remember, India versus Pakistan Asia Cup 2022, the first face-off was like a nightmare for Indian fans as India lost the opening match to Pakistan. And now the most awaited match of the tournament is happening tomorrow. India will take on its arch rival Pakistan at the Pallekele International Cricket Stadium, and as per Cricket Board's discussion, the match is happening at a neutral venue in Sri Lanka. If we look at the weather forecast for the day, there are 90% chances of heavy thunderstorms in Kandy. As fans and cricket aficionados brace for this monumental encounter, they anxiously monitor the weather updates, hoping for a rain-free spectacle. If rain disturbs the match, both innings will reduce for few overs, and it will be advantage for Pakistan as they will have variations in bowlers as compared to India. Pressure again will be building on Indian batsmen to perform well. Well, all eyes will be on that crucial match tomorrow. But with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Rush Hour. Stay tuned to ET Now for more news and updates, and of course, special shows running throughout this evening. Thanks for staying with ET Now. Goodbye.